I think I read recently where the first billion people, we reached the population of 1 billion in the latter part of the 19th century. And I was born in about the mid part of the 20th century, and there were 3 billion. And now just within the last few weeks, we've reached 7 billion population, projected to go to 10 plus billion within this century. And when we were a younger and more sparse population species, we had the distance, we had the space between us to be able to sort of act out our individuality, to have the luxury of being separate, and to find and pursue our own interests at the detriment of others and nature, but we were such sparse numbers that it really didn't affect the entire world in the same way it is affecting it now. We've reached a threshold in numbers now where our actions, regardless of how local their the implication of our action, is the ripple effect of that is felt across and through the world. And so I think it's this sobering number with diminishing resources and a climate that is altering unfavorably, that it's sort of a cold shower or a slap of ice water in our face, where this is no longer a privilege to meditate, it's a necessity. And meditation, by what I mean by that, is that it's no longer it's no longer one's enjoyed little private project to sort of temper one's mind and make one a better person. I mean, that's fine, and I'm not begrudging that point, but that there's something in the whole species that has to wake up. That there's a way that we've reached a threshold now where we have to walk beyond the individuation of ourselves into the truth of our existence, which we have been denying or shielding ourselves from all of these millennium. And so when I passionately plead for us to look at the deeper issues within our meditation, it's not just me sort of sounding off and trying to drive my point home. It's for the sake of the species, the common consciousness. And the common consciousness is affected by everything we do. And this small group of people has a tremendous effect, a rippling effect upon the whole species consciousness through our sincerity and through our diligence and through our wanting to know, the truth. What's true in life? Even that question itself will have its resolution within interconnectedness. But if we just are interested in our own personal pleasure and our own personal satisfaction and how we can kind of manage our life individually as best we can through this dramas that affect us, then we will be reinforcing this sense of separation within that same consciousness. And there's plenty of that, believe me, to counterweight whatever inspiration we might have. So we don't do it for ourselves anymore. In the true meaning, we do it for all beings. We do this thing for all beings. We do this because we don't have the luxury to pretend any longer. And so we were at the first 1.5 million years of our existence was the age of pretension. And the question of whether we even evolve out of that is huge. I think the survival of our species is at stake within the next 100 or so years. But for us, for those of us who already have the disposition to look and to ask, what is true? What is really true here? Not to play the denial game or the procrastination game or the blame game, but to really look at oneself and ask an honest question. That's all that's being asked of us here. Is this true? And truth will take you much deeper than your need for pleasure. Your pursuit of pleasure keeps you very superficially present and very much involved in the pursuit of your individuality. The question of what is true will take you to the union, the interconnected union that is the salvation for not only the planet but for our species as well. And we lead that quest through our intention. Our intention towards life is what decides how we're going to play out on the field of our life. If your intention is self-serving, then your actions of body, speech, and mind will also follow suit. And there will be a constant rub and struggle between your individual needs and the rest of humanity and the rest of life itself. If your intention is to interconnect, to find the union that may not be obvious to you in this particular moment, but is the truth of life, unalterably the truth of life, proclaimed by every mystic with any depth since time immemorial, then your life will look very different as it moves along the face of the earth. And that will affect other lives that you interact with. If you rub against someone who has a different disposition, a different intention, a different direction, works out of a different paradigm, has a sense of honesty or integrity about them, immediately, energetically, you feel that rub. You feel the effect of that presence upon you. And so too, each of us could represent a model for the species as a whole. But we have to be willing to ask basic questions about ourselves that up until this point we have been unwilling to ask, quite likely, or have pretending to be untrue about ourselves. Our species is formed out of denial. It is amazing to me. I never underestimate the power of denial in this species. It is extraordinary how life can be falling into destruction and ruin around us, and we can pretend that nothing is occurring. And when I ask for your attention, it's for that reason, to shake us sufficiently, to wake us sufficiently, so that we are no longer acting in accordance with that defense mechanism. And we do this individually through our own perception. Is what I'm telling myself endlessly, the stories that I'm engendering here, are they true? And you'll see very quickly that the lines of thought are distorted according to your perception, according to your emotional arising in the moment, according to your history, according to your opinion, and that they never have a truth in and of themselves. They're always cited from our perspective. And it's just one perspective meeting another. And so there's never harmony because no one has the same perspective as you. But yours is the right one. This is crazy. This is crazy. And so as we sit, we align ourselves with some deeper intentionality than the craziness that surfaces with every thought and with every emotional expression. And our intention is to move into what is true, is to live with what is true. That's the intention for ourselves. That's what brings out this basic guidance system that each of us have, that knows, that discerns what is true and what isn't, knows deeply, no longer willing to be fooled. And we start with our meditation in that way. This isn't just sort of comic relief as we sort of find a comfortable way we can sit. This is extraordinarily serious and very important, not only to you as an individual entity, but as I mentioned, to the entire species as well. It is the intention of heart that leads the species out of the confusion and ignorance that it has lived with. And it starts with us, because who else is going to lead it? Who else is even willing to come at this most basic level and move below the surface that has formed our life?